Hey everybody, welcome to another HJC podcast, and coming up on Wednesday, we have Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Final, and that's what we're here to talk about. I'm joined by Monday's writer, Jack. Hey Jack, how's it going?
It's going good.
I'm also joined by Wednesday's writer, Dylan. Hey Dylan.
Hey there.
Thursday's writer, Brendan. Brendan, how's it going?
Good.
And Friday's writer, Sean. Sean, how's it going?
Oh, it's going great.
All right. So we got the Blackhawks and the Lightning coming up on Wednesday. We're going to break down the series position by position. We're going to throw out our predictions, and then we're going to get into a few prop bets, do a little over-under, and if we have some time, we'll get into another couple other topics. First off, Dylan, how does it feel to have your Hawks back in the final? Are you getting spoiled by their third appearance in 5 years?
It feels pretty good. And yeah, I probably am being spoiled after the salary cap ruins them after this season. It's gonna be tough for another couple years, I feel.
They should be able to keep their core together as long as.
I sure hope so. Well, the core will be good. It's all the other stuff I want to keep.
Yeah, well, they should. There's always the bottom six forwards, back two defensemen. Those guys are always floating around the league as far as free agents go. So.
I've grown close with ours, though. Oh, well. I'll deal with it.
When you win, you always do grow close with those guys, but that's where all the tough decisions come in.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so we'll start off with the goalie matchup, Ben Bishop against Corey Crawford. Jack, why don't you start us off? What do you think of the goalie matchup, and maybe who has the edge?
I gotta say, being a Blackhawks fan, it's kind of scary. I really think that these two are really even, but I think that Corey Crawford kind of has the edge, mostly because he's got the ring already. I just feel like Corey Crawford, as a goalie, every single game, he always manages to let some in. Ben Bishop, especially games 5 and 7 at MSG, he had those shutouts.
Yeah.
But I really think that in the end, Corey Crawford is going to be the one to save more shots. And I don't know. I think Ben Bishop is probably going to play well, but just come a little bit short.
Yeah, that's fair. Crawford does have the experience edge, and it seems like it doesn't matter how many Stanley Cups he's going to win or will win. People are always going to be on his back. Why don't we go another Hawks fan? Dylan, why don't you give us your analysis of the goalie matchup?
Yeah, I've got to echo that. I feel that Corey Crawford has a history of being a shaky goaltender, but he does have the experience. He does have that ring. I've never personally been a big Crawford fan. It's back to his days in Rockford here, but this year I've been the least hard on him. I feel like he's proven himself to be a lot better than I think most people give him credit for. He's come up big in the games they need him to, which is probably the most important. He plays big when they need him. As for Ben Bishop, I see a lot of the same issues with him that I've seen in Corey Crawford these past few years. He can play big when they need him, but at the same time, he can also just totally crap the bed. Both of them can be totally inconsistent. I think Crawford, though, he's probably going to be more comfortable on this big stage. I'm sure Bishop on the first game or two will have a little bit of jitters.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was actually thinking about this today. St. Louis, when they were out in the first round, and they're blaming it on goalie issues and possibly the coach this year, but they had Ben Bishop in their system, 2-3 years ago, and now here he is in the Stanley Cup Final. That's just funny to think about. Brendan, your thoughts on the goalie matchup going into the Stanley Cup Final?
I don't really think I have much else to say that hasn't been said. I don't really get the time to watch hockey during my season because I play on two teams myself.
Okay, all right.
So I'm not really going to know much from that standpoint either.
Who do you like better, Crawford or Bishop in the series?
Just from what I hear a lot, I hear Bishop seems better, and a lot of the inconsistencies that Crawford has, I hear a lot. But as you guys are saying, it sounds like Bishop has those too.
Yeah, absolutely. They are equal, and you can count on mistakes from them, but they can also pull quite a game out of their hat. Sean, your thoughts on the goalie matchup in the Stanley Cup Final?
It's so even. It's going to be the goalie that makes the least amount of mistakes, and that's more likely going to be Crawford. But at the same time, I think that if you could pull together who's going to have a better best game, I think it's Bishop.
Interesting, yeah. I also believe it's going to be whoever makes the least mistakes, and that may be too simple to say, but when you have two goalies like this who have a tendency to make glaring errors and on the other side make fantastic saves, it really will come down to who can limit their mistakes.
Exactly. Just one thing about, I know it hasn't brought up, but this, I think that in this series, the backups might come in.
Yeah, it's been the year of the backups.
So, I mean, with that regard, Chicago has that set perfectly with Darling.
Yeah, that's true. And Tampa has, I don't remember his name.
Vasilevsky or whatever.
Vasilevsky, I think?
There we go. Russian guy.
Pretty sure they've still got Halak's number 2 somewhere. Give him a ring.
What happened to, I thought Tampa had that Latvian guy, played in the Olympics last year, dehydrated himself. Anyway, it's not important. They obviously don't have him anymore. Let's move on to the defense matchup. And, Jack, why don't you tell us what you see here? Defense versus defense.
Honestly, the first defenseman I really want to talk about, I think he's going to make the biggest impact in the series, Duncan Keith.
Absolutely.
Oh, my God. He's probably not only my favorite player on the Hawks, but my favorite player in the game right now. I mean, and there's a good reason behind that. He's got a plus-minus of 13 right now in the playoffs. He's absolutely insane. I think if there's going to be a threat to equal that on Tampa, it's got to be Victor Hedman. But I don't know if he's as good of a two-way defenseman as Duncan Keith. Outside of that, I think defenseman-wise, the only people that are really going to make big effects in this matchup are going to be Brent Seabrook and Nicholas Hjalmarsson for the Hawks, and maybe Strawman for the Lightning. I don't really think that a lot of the D-men for Tampa Bay are going to have that much of an impact on the series.
Agreed. Strawman's a really nice defenseman, as is Coburn and Garrison on the Bolts, but you compare them to Seabrook and Hjalmarsson, and they can't match up. They're good, but they can't match up. And Keith is strong. I mean, there's no reason to stop playing him 30 minutes a game. There's 4 to 7 games left in the year. There's no reason to stop playing him 30 minutes a game, so he should be on. Sean, what are your thoughts on the defensive matchup?
I think Chicago's got this hands down.
Yeah.
It's because the only way that Tampa can beat Chicago defensively is if they play offensive defense, and they don't have that right now.
Absolutely.
The best thing, if Victor Hedman's leading the defenseman with 10 points in the playoffs, Duncan Keith's almost doubling that himself. So, and then, Hjalmarsson, Seabrook, Oduya, they're all going to shut down over what the Tampa Bay has.
Oduya is a great fit as a number 4. You want to move him up higher, he's not going to do what you need him to do, but Oduya is a perfect, 4-5 on the Hawks?
He's 4.
Yeah, perfectly slotted there. And he's probably going to play, what does he play, 15 minutes a game roughly? That's a good spot for him. I'll take Oduya as my number 4 defenseman anytime. Dylan, your thoughts on the defensive matchup?
Same as we've been hearing. I think it comes down to the depth on the blue line, which has been a problem for the Hawks the last couple of series since Roosevelt went down, even before that. But if any of us are able to say that the Blackhawks are a better defensive team when they're short on the blue line than the other finalists, that's saying something about the top 2 guys that are out there the most, and even the bottom 2 guys, or the middle 2 guys. You probably won't see too much of the bottom pair.
No, you don't. Quinville doesn't even trust them, not even a bit.
I don't necessarily blame them. I love the guys, and I like to see them play, but they haven't really carried their weight this playoffs.
No, and Timonin's been a disaster.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Brendan, what are your thoughts on the defensive matchup? Who do you think has the edge here?
There's really not much else to say. It hasn't been said. Chicago's pretty much obviously got it.
It seems unanimous.
The only other thing that I really have to add that's already come up and is pretty much most likely going to come up on forwards too is that Chicago has the experience in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Winning, 2 in the last 5 or 6 years?
Yeah, 2 in the last 4 years or whatever it is. Lockout throws off everything.
They've gone to the conference finals at least once or in those other years.
I heard 5 of the last 7 years Chicago's been in the conference final.
Yeah, that's definitely a lot of experience, and they've kept a lot of these guys throughout this whole time.
Yeah, and which I think they'll continue to do. I know the salary cap's going to tear them apart, but the main guys will be there, so they'll be okay. Let's move on to the forward matchup. Jack, why don't you start us off? Tell us what you think about the forwards.
I think this one's pretty even. You got players on the Hawks like Jonathan Toews. I'm loving what Brad Richards has been doing this season so far, especially in this playoffs. Antoine Vermette's been a great player, but then you've got classic names like Patrick Kane. He's definitely been posting up some numbers. He was really shaky in the Nashville series when he got back, but he kind of picked it up right after that.
Should be expected.
Yeah. I haven't been watching Tampa Bay as much as I should be, or anything in the East as much as I should be, but Tyler Johnson and Steven Stamkos, they're pretty classic players. I definitely expect them to be posting the numbers we expect from them. Even players like Callahan, I really like what he's been doing so far this playoff season. Outside of that, I can't really name any big players.
No, it's for me, as far as I see on the Lightning, you got Stamkos, and I would expect Callahan to show up. Tyler Johnson is going through this for the first time, so I wouldn't be surprised if this is going to be obviously the toughest series of the year. I wouldn't be surprised if this is when he disappears. This is when he goes quiet. So it's going to be, as far as I see it for the Lightning, it's going to be up to Stamkos and Callahan to really pull their forwards through. Mm-hmm. Also, I tweeted this out the other day, but I know that Crosby, Ovechkin, Malkin, Datsuk, all these guys are probably better individual players, but if I'm starting a team and I want to win for a long time, I take Jonathan Toews, because that's all that guy does, is win and score the goals when you need him to. And he's done it for Chicago, and he's done it for Team Canada. Sean, why don't you give us a rundown of your forward matchup?
It's pretty even as far as the top lineups go. It's the depth that really comes in for Chicago in this case. But as you said, I think that it has to come down to the fact that Callahan has 4 points in the playoffs right now, and you do expect that players like Palat and Johnson and Chukharov are going to disappear as they go. When you're left with Stamkos, well, Kane and Taves and Keith and Hossa, they've all been there and they know what they're doing. Yeah. So and the third line of the Saad and Shaw and all those players are going to be right there with them.
Yeah.
So it's going to be more of a who's going to be there, not so much. As great as Taves and Kane are, it's going to be the Shaws and the Bickles that are going to win this for Chicago.
Absolutely. I agree. Dylan, your thoughts?
Yeah, it's going to come down to depth here. Whose bottom lines can produce more? Because when you've got the star-studded, top two lines that these teams have got, it's going to be pretty even. You're going to have the high goal totals. I would be surprised if there was not one shutout in this series. Maybe not every game is going to be a high-scoring affair, but I don't think we're going to see too many low-scoring ones. But I have to say I haven't watched a ton of Tampa Bay. I mean, I've been watching them in the playoffs, but regular season Eastern team, they're not someone I follow too often. Mm-hmm. But I don't know too many of their third and fourth liners. I can't name them. They don't seem to. I'm sure they do produce, but not to the extent that I feel the Blackhawks do. You've got Shaw. He's kind of made a name for himself being one of those scrappy producers.
Yeah.
He's headbutting pucks in the net.
Brendan, your thoughts on who has the advantage here forwards-wise?
I think, again, as everybody's been saying, it's pretty even overall. But I think one thing that's really going to come down to it, again, the experience. And will Tampa Bay's younger guys disappear? That could probably decide the series right there, if they disappear.
Yeah. I mean, you want to see them perform, and maybe one of them will step up and show us that they're ready for the big stage. But when you go through it the first time, even look at Chicago. What was it, 2008, where they lost to the Wings in the semi?
9.
Did they lose both years in the semis to the Wings?
No, 8. They didn't make the playoffs in 8,
okay.
And then in 9 they lost in the semis.
Yeah, and that's where they didn't have the experience, and they fell short. So is that where Tampa Bay, does that happen to Tampa Bay? And Tampa Bay may have just been fortunate to get to the finals here rather than being knocked out early.
See, I don't think that that disappearing act comes into play for any of the younger Chicago guys, which, off the top of my head, the only one that I'm really imagining getting any playing time would be Teravainen. He's surrounded by guys that have played in this stage before, so I can't imagine him having any sort of... unless he doesn't play, which after the last couple of games, I can't imagine he sits again unless something terrible happens. But I don't think Tampa Bay doesn't have that experience to hand down to these younger guys and help them out.
Exactly, and Tampa Bay can't. If Tampa Bay has a case like that, they don't have the experienced players to insulate that other guy to pick him up and drag him along. So, yeah, I think as we've seen, or as we've been talking about, it seems that Chicago has a clear edge on forwards and defense, and the closer matchup may be on goaltending. I have it in my notes that I have Bishop with the advantage, but that can change. You never know who's going to make the first mistake, and how big is it going to be, and are the other players going to be there to clean up the mistake? Let's go with our series predictions. How long do you think the series will go? And maybe break down how you think each game might go. Let's start with you, Sean.
Game 1, it's not going to be close, but Chicago's going to win it, probably about 5-2. Game 2, it's going to be closer, maybe like a 2-1 win for Chicago. Go back to Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay is going to win their game at home. Probably a 5-4 win in overtime. Chicago wins Game 4, 7-6. Game 5 in Chicago. Tampa Bay starts off elimination. I have Chicago winning in 6.
Yeah,
but I'm just trying to go through the possibilities that could happen in this series. I already had that last game. It's the game where the backups come in. And then Tampa Bay will win the next game 4-2, and then Chicago wins 5-3.
Now,
wins the cup.
You got a pretty high-scoring series there.
I think so.
Yeah, that's fair. Jack, your thoughts on how long this series will go, and maybe a breakdown of how that's going to happen.
I gotta say, I agree with Sean. I think they're going to take it in 6. The Hawks are. I think every single game is going to be 4-3 Hawks in triple overtime, of course. I think...
Real quick, did you see that ESPN NHL writer Pierre LeBrun, I'm pretty sure he's just kind of joking around, but he has a whole article that previews the series, and at the very end, his prediction is Blackhawks in 7 in Tampa in triple overtime, and I wouldn't doubt it with the way the Blackhawks play overtime hockey. If you don't play eight or 9 games in a 7-game series, you didn't do it right. But yeah, I thought it was funny you mentioned a triple overtime after reading that earlier.
Gotta love overtime games in the final, eh?
Yeah.
No.
Oh God.
Oh come on.
I've had enough of them.
Even in Chicago. Sorry, go ahead, Jack.
I remember it was the first game of the 2013 finals against Boston. That game went to triple overtime, and I was in this tiny little shack in Wisconsin, just sitting around until I think it was 1 o'clock in the morning, wandering around during all of the intermissions, just waiting for this game to come on, falling asleep at this bar. And when they finally scored, I immediately just fell asleep right there in this place. And I just woke up the next morning completely confused. My brother had ended up carrying me back to my room.
Those games are stressful. I can't handle it anymore.
Yeah, I can't tell you. I don't know what playoff hockey feels like being a Leafs fan anymore. But
yeah, you got Babcock. You'll get it eventually, maybe.
Yeah,
last year was bad.
Yeah, it was awesome.
The last game with Martinez scoring, I think I fell asleep like 3 or 4 times. I can't remember. That game wasn't in LA, was it?
Yeah, it was. Doesn't
matter.
matter.
It was. Yeah, that would explain it though. Because
it doesn't matter where they are, right? Because they all start at 8 Eastern.
That's right.
Yeah.
It was like 2 in the morning, and I'm like, score. I don't even care if there's a Game 7 score.
I just love the fact that you take the two markets that are in the Stanley Cup final or all of Canada, and if there's an overtime game, you can go to work or school the next day, and if you see someone who's got bags under their eyes and is dragging ass, you know they stayed up and watched the entire overtime, and they get the hall pass that day because you give them a friendly nod to acknowledge that they're a hockey fan, and yeah, you stuck it out through overtime. Way to go! I just love that. Dylan, why don't you give us a series length and a breakdown?
Well, thinking about how I wanted to predict the series, I wanted to tackle it how I tackled my NHL playoff bracket, which was normally I'm that idiot who predicts with their heart and not their mind, and I did the mind this year, and I bragged about it once on the blog, and I've gotten every series except for the Blues series correct.
Nice.
And I want to do it here. My heart says Hawks in 4, so they can win it at home for once.
Oh, yeah.
But my mind says Hawks in 6, so they can win it at home for once. They'll probably have to drop Game 5 on purpose just to bring it back home. So I think Tampa Bay will probably win. I want to say they're going to win one of the first two at home, just because that energy, I can't even imagine the energy. I've been to playoff games at home, and it's amazing. How anyone can lose a home playoff game is astounding, but it won in the finals. They're going to come out. I don't think they're going to win the first game. I think the Blackhawks will ride there. They got a little bit of a momentum swing coming off of a heartbreaker and then taking the last two against Anaheim. I think they'll come out swinging, but they're going to win Game 1. Game 2, I think Tampa's going to rebound. Hawks are going to sweep 3 and 4 at home just because Chicago.
Yeah.
Game 5, I think Tampa, on the brink of elimination, home game, they're gonna stick that one out. But Game 6 in Chicago, Cubs in the building, I don't think Blackhawks can lose that game.
Yeah, I'm pretty much on the same thought as you, Dylan, except I think that Tampa Bay will come out, play their best game in the playoffs in Game 1, and so take the 1-0 lead, and then Chicago wakes up, takes the next 3. Tampa holds off on elimination, and then Chicago wins Game 6. Brendan, how long do you see this series going?
I would probably say, if I had to actually just not pick without bias, I would probably say Chicago in 6. But my bias would say Tampa in 7. I don't know why. I just want Tampa to win for some reason.
Okay.
I honestly don't know how to explain it.
Who's your team, Brendan?
My favorite team?
Yeah.
Pens.
Oh, okay, right, okay.
Yeah. So I kind of didn't like the fact that the Rangers won again, and I definitely wanted them out.
Yeah, okay.
I definitely wanted them out when Tampa won, and as soon as they won, I started cheering. So maybe that's it. But I don't really think that Tampa will have an extended lead in the series based on games. I think if anybody has like a 2-0, 3-0 games lead, it would be Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
I actually don't really know how to explain that one either. That's just what I think right now.
So
I have no explanation for this whatsoever.
We're pretty much all on the same idea. Most of us said Chicago in 6. There's a Tampa in 7 in there too. But yeah, I would think it looks like all the stats and what we're all talking about point to Chicago probably winning their 3rd cup in 5 years here.
What's it say about the strength of the conferences where we're talking about the championship series, the 2 best teams at this point in the league, and it's like we're not even giving Tampa Bay a second thought, it seems like. Like, I feel like we'd be having the same conversation if Anaheim had won the other night.
Yeah, absolutely.
After Tampa Bay won Game 7 the other night, I saw a lot of people on social media saying it doesn't matter who wins tomorrow in Anaheim, they're going to wipe the floor with Tampa Bay.
And I would agree, and that's the way it's been. The West has been stronger for at least 5
They've won
years.
the last 4 or 5.
Yeah,
and I don't remember it ever being that way. I remember it was always the East.
Yeah, I
growing
guess
up.
These things just are cyclical. Maybe at some point the East will be stronger, but I don't see
I
it.
hope not.
And it used to be the Bruins and the Pens that owned the East, and now they've faded off. And
It's a different team every year.
yeah, but last year during that awesome Hawks-Kings series, everybody knew whoever won that series was probably going to win the Stanley Cup.
I don't remember
Yeah.
that series.
You don't remember the Hawks-Kings series?
No. I must have blacked it out or something.
I don't want to remember that series. It's scarred in the back of my mind.
I know the feeling.
So I guess I'm not in good company to call that one of the greatest series of all time.
I don't even remember it.
It was a great series.
I love that series. I also enjoyed the 2013 final. So
That was a good one.
Yeah.
yeah, odd how you remember that one, but
Yeah.
the conference final. I don't think that happened last year. We're gonna do some prop bets. Just simply pick over under here, and let's start with Patrick Kane is going to score 4.5 goals in the Stanley Cup final. Dylan, over or under?
I'm going to go over. He's been picking it up lately, playing exactly how he needs to play, and kind of surpassing that in some games. I think this final he's definitely going to go over that 4.5.
Sean, over or under?
Over in the first 2 games.
I know one of the TSN radio stations here in Toronto, they like to call him Showtime. I don't know if that nickname is around the NHL, but Patrick Kane's definitely Showtime.
Yeah.
Brendan, Patrick Kane scores 4.5 goals in the series. Over or under?
I'm going to say over.
Over, yeah.
I'm also not really sure how you'd score half a goal, though.
Well, I couldn't leave it at 4 because then we can't call
I think I see what
ties.
you're trying to say, but I think I see why you did that. But yeah, I don't really know how you'd score half a goal.
Wait until you get to the shutouts. That one's going to blow your mind.
Andrew Shaw's headbutt goal, we'll call that a half goal.
Yeah, there you go.
Jack, Patrick Kane, 4.5 goals. Over or under?
I got to say over in the first game.
Ooh.
Spoken like a Hawks fan. There was a great thing on Twitter. I don't know if anybody saw it. It was for the Ducks-Hawks series, and someone made mock-ups of Ducks and Hawks jerseys from the Mighty Ducks movies.
Ha.
It was pretty good. How about Stamkos scoring 4.5 goals in the series? Over or under, Dylan?
I'm going to have to say it's going to hurt, but I think he's going to go over. I mean, he has to if they're going to have any sort of chance. I feel like we talked about it with the offense earlier. He's got to be the one producing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Rook, do you know where the Showtime came from? You know where that nickname came from, Ryan?
No, not a clue.
I believe it was the Wild series last year. He scored a big goal, and then part of his celebration, he was mic'd up, or someone near him was. You could hear him yelling, "It's Showtime, baby!"
Okay, it fits. Patrick Kane is Showtime. Sean, over under on Stamkos 4.5 goals.
Under, but 4 goals.
Just
so we're not talking about, he doesn't disappear, but he's going to have at least one game where he goes goalless.
Yeah, well, I think the Hawks know if they want to have success, they're going to have to shut down Stamkos and force the other guys to get the job done, if they can. Brendan, 4.5 goals for Stamkos. Over or under?
I'm going to say over, but it's still going to be close to that. It's not going to be too far off. It's not going to be, I guess 10 would be a lot of goals in the first place, but it's not going to be a lot of goals, but it's not going to be less than that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And
that made sense.
Absolutely. Jack, over or under?
I got to say if the Bolts have any chance of carrying it to Game 6, then I got to say over.
Mm-hmm. And we'll go to the next one. Jonathan Toews, 5.5 points in the series. Dylan, over or under?
Way over. If he plays the way he's been playing lately, I don't think he's going to come out and do what he did the other night and score 2 goals in the first period every game. But he's got that playmaker status. He's going to rack up the assists. He's going to get some big goals when they need them. Way over 5 points.
Sean, over or under?
Over by a lot.
Brendan, over or under?
Agreeing with everybody else, I'm definitely going to say over.
Fair enough. And Jack?
Yeah, I got to agree with everyone else. Way over.
Is there anything that anybody on the Hawks can do to take away the Conn Smythe from Duncan Keith? Because right now he's my unanimous pick. Is there anybody not agree with me?
Taze has to get like 20 points, maybe.
A perfectly timed Victor Hedman knee-on-knee collision. That's about it.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Which hopefully,
doesn't and that would probably hurt Hedman more than Keith.
Yeah. Yeah, because Keith, he's going to come back out and play another 20 minutes.
Oh, exactly.
Tyler Johnson, 5.5 points in the series. Over under, Dylan.
Under. I think he's one of those guys that's going to have a lot of struggles early on in the series.
Sean, over or under?
Under. I could see him going scoreless in this series.
Absolutely, I agree. Brendan.
I'm going to say under, but I think the disappearing act that we were talking about could also come into effect on this one.
Mm-hmm. Jack?
I'm a little bit hesitant, but I want to say over. I think, if anything, he's going to be at least getting assists.
He's going to be the main guy who has to pick up if the Hawks are able to shut down Stamkos. Our next prop bet, we got 1.5 games in the series going into overtime. Dylan.
My heart says none. My head says like 2.
Sean.
Definitely the final one, so over.
Over. Brendan.
Yeah.
I would say over 2 or 3, maybe even.
Yeah, 3 would be great. I love overtime games because I'm willing to sit in front of the TV and watch them. Jack.
You love them when your team's not in every single one.
Yeah.
Kind of suck. I think Pens lost in overtime this year, right? And was it overtime?
I think they did.
Yeah, it was overtime, Game 5.
Look, at least you guys could pull it to overtime.
I remember the Leafs made it to overtime once after blowing a 3-goal lead, but I don't remember how it ended. So,
Well, that was
It's kind of weird how you don't remember that.
yeah, I think I turned the game off.
It's a weird year.
Yeah. Jack, over or under on the overtime games?
Oh, man, I love overtime games. I got to go over.
Over. And we'll go with shutouts for the goalies. Bishop and Crawford, half a shutout each. Over or under, Dylan?
Under. I don't think the offense is going to let that happen.
Sean?
Over on Bishop, under on Crawford.
Okay. Brendan?
Ooh.
I think if there are going to be any shutouts, there's only going to be one all series. I don't really think it's going to be that low of a scoring series. But I'm not really sure which way I would put that. Maybe for Crawford getting a shutout because of the Hawks' offense and the Lightning's lack of defense, so to speak.
Yeah. And Jack, over under on that one, or on Bishop and Crawford?
Over on Bishop, under on Crawford.
Okay. All right. And the final one, 17.5 total goals scored in the series. And what did I work that out to be? Over 6-game series, that's an average of a 2-1 final every night. So 17.5 total goals in the series. Over under, Dylan?
My tiebreaker at my NHL bracket is at a 20, so over.
Over. Sean?
Double bat.
Brendan?
With the math that you did, with only 3 goals a game, I'm definitely going to say over.
Okay. Jack?
I got to go way over. I put 27 as my tiebreaker.
Yeah, I remember, well, my bracket was way off. I had Anaheim the Rangers beating Anaheim in the final, and I said 29 goals in that series, and I think this series is capable of lots of goals, so I would even go over on that one, too.
I'm not even going to mention my bracket.
Weird how you don't remember that bracket.
Oh, I remember it. Don't worry. I picked Jets and Rangers.
So I'm kind of on the same page as you are.
It's just my first round was ruined in my bracket. I don't even think I went 50%, but somehow I got 3 out of 4 teams in the final 4. But then after that, it just went down the toilet. Don't worry about the fact that we all pretty much said Chicago is going to win the Cup in 6. When you picture both of these teams winning the Stanley Cup, what jersey do you picture them winning it in? Why don't you start us off, Brendan?
Well, based on my 2 predictions being Chicago in 6 or Tampa in 7, who has home ice? Tampa, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess they'd be both in their blue or red jerseys at home, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Dylan, how do you picture the Hawks winning the Cup, and how do you picture the Lightning winning the Cup?
I always picture a team winning at home, just winning away, winning on the road, just something so weird about it. Like I imagine, like I've seen it twice in my lifetime now. The Hawks get to raise the cup in their white jersey in a stadium that's full of either yellow or orange. Well, and a pretty decent amount of red sprinkled in there. But I just want to see the Hawks in red in a stadium full of red. And if I had to see it the other way, I'd want to see it blue jerseys in a sea of blue.
Fair enough. I remember reading Wayne Gretzky's book. This was a long time ago, but he was talking about how the Oilers won all of their cups at home. Well, when he was there, and the '88 Cup, it was Game 4. They were up 3-0. They were in Boston, and they were actually motivated by the fact that for once they wanted to win the cup on the road because they won it at home so often. And sure enough, they have the power outage at the Boston Garden. Game 4 gets canceled and moved to Edmonton, and they go ahead and win the cup at home again. Jack, how do you picture these teams?
It's really weird because I can only picture the Hawks winning this in white, but I really want to see them in red.
Because that's what you're used to.
Exactly, yeah. Bolts, I kind of want to see them win it in blue if they do.
Okay. I had Tampa Bay. I picture them lifting the cup in white, and I think that's I think that's just because they beat the Rangers recently in white, and that's probably their biggest win in recent memory, obviously. And then,
does anyone know off the top of their head which team's luckiest jersey is which? Because I know one of the websites does that. Is it blue?
Tampa's blue jersey was really good this year.
You would have to think so. Teams are usually better at home.
Yeah.
And Chicago's good in all of them.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
I would love to see Chicago winning it in red. To me, that's the classic Hawks jersey. The white one's classic as well, but if I had to associate one jersey with the Hawks, it would be the red one. So I'd also like to see them win it in red. Did we get to everybody on that question?
I don't know. I think I agree with everyone in that, the home jersey, there's sort of that thing of winning at home. But at the same time, it's like white looks better to me. I don't know. I'm a home white guy.
Okay, well let's branch off onto that. Do you guys prefer white at home or the color jerseys at home? Dylan?
Well, I mean, I grew up with white at home, and then it turned into red at home. Well, color at home. I think I see it a lot in Rockford. I don't know if the AHL has that rule. I think it's up to the home team. So I don't necessarily have a preference as long as the colors aren't. I wouldn't mind seeing color on color more often, honestly.
It could work. I know they tried it a long time ago, maybe 20, 25 years ago in preseason for color on color games. And
the Winter Classic in Detroit looked great.
Yes, that looked great. It wasn't difficult at all to distinguish the two teams. And I know during the 91-92 season, when the original six were wearing their throwback jerseys, sometimes they went with a color-on-color game. Sean, what jersey do you like at home, whites or colors?
I don't know. I can remember back when teams were white at home. And I remember the switch. I've always sort of preferred white at home, just because to me the white jersey is very crisp. It's very neutral, and it always needs to balance off of the colored team, and whatever that may be. I'm totally in favor of more all color jersey games, especially with Nashville now using yellow.
Yeah, they could almost never wear their white one if they wanted.
Exactly.
100%. But at the same time, it's like I would not want to see a Detroit-Montreal game, which I know would never happen. Yeah, or even worse would be a Detroit-Carolina.
I don't know if I tweeted this the other day, or if any of you guys would have seen it if I did. I went to a minor league baseball game here in Rockford, and our home team's our scheme is orange and navy blue, and they played a team from Joliet, Illinois, and they were orange and green, and there must not have been any communication, or they just didn't care. Both teams wore their orange alternates, and it was a mess.
It's baseball, though, so...
still, though, as a designer and an art in mind, I couldn't stand it.
Oh, yeah, you would have to think someone would have... Obviously, no one did, but someone should have stepped in there. Brendan, what do you like at home, white jersey or colored jersey?
I guess I would have to say colored, mainly because of the alternates, and have it being able to possibly implement another color to wear at home, and it would just be a lot easier. You could see it in front of the home crowd and everything.
Well, that's exactly why they changed the rule, because so many teams were coming up with a colored alternate. It was forcing teams to travel with two sets of jerseys.
and that nostalgia factor doesn't come into play in that I haven't been a huge hockey fan for that long.
Okay.
And I only just finished my sophomore year in high school, so I'm a lot young. I'm kind of younger too. So I don't really remember the white at home era as much as you guys do.
Fair enough.
Remember that?
Jack, what do you like at home?
I gotta say color. I'm really used to the white at home because I go to the Chicago Wolves games a lot. But yeah, sorry, Dylan. I don't really go to the Rockford games.
I mean, you could. I mean, I don't want to hang out or anything.
Sorry. No, I kind of like the color. It's a lot stronger on the ice, and it really shows who the dominant team is, and you want that at home.
That's true. Just on another side note, Jack, how does that work with, like, it's obviously a Blackhawks fan base, but then you got the Wolves, and who are they a farm team for now?
Blues.
It's the Blues now.
Yeah.
How does that work? People still get, like, dedicated to the Wolves, or?
No, I just live a lot closer to their arena.
Okay. They have a decent group of dedicated fans that...
Yeah, I'd say so.
And if you're a Wolves fan, you can still be a Hawks fan?
I guess I don't...
It's gotten pretty weird for them. Because
Yeah.
even before the Blues, so, like, bad. You don't want that here.
Mm-hmm.
Before that, they were the Atlanta Thrashers, and no one cared.
Right, yeah. And
Hey.
I mean, I like the Thrashers, but, like, there wasn't a rivalry... Like St. Louis and Vancouver, Blackhawks fans, we don't like them.
Yeah, I wouldn't think that would go over too well.
What, the Canucks for a year?
Yeah.
Yeah, before the
That must have been fun.
Yeah. No. I actually went to an Ice Hogs game in Chicago against the Wolves this year, and I had heard it before, and I wanted to experience it. Because they're a farm team of the Blues, all these Chicagoans who you were assuming are Blackhawks fans, I'm sure most of them don't even give it a thought, but they're rooting for a rival, like a big rival's farm team. So when the Ice Hogs come into town and they've got the Indian head on their shoulder, people know. And the jersey's the exact same,
Yeah.
so they know, and it's mostly a Wolves crowd. Everyone's in Wolves jerseys or Blackhawks jerseys, so... When the Ice Hogs score, they ended up shutting out the Wolves that day. When the Ice Hogs scored, it was like a weird, awkward silence. Like, they didn't want to cheer against their team, but they do want to cheer for the future Blackhawks. Except for the one guy in the whole building I saw in a Blues jersey. He was probably the only one that actually cared.
I remember about 10 years ago, Toronto had Edmonton's farm team here, and at the time the Leafs farm team was in St. John's. And the only time... Toronto, they're the Roadrunners. The only time the Roadrunners had a decent crowd was when the St. John's Maple Leafs came in, and no one was cheering for the Roadrunners, and that's essentially why they were kicked out and the Marlies were brought in.
I like the Marlies coming to Rockford. I like seeing teams that don't get to come out here often.
It's unfortunate in the AHL, and it happens because of cost, but teams don't play each other. Like, I think the Marlies do the one trip to Rockford a year.
Yeah. Does Rockford go to Toronto?
I can't remember them coming here for a while. And we don't get to Marlies don't get to play teams like Hartford or Providence, or you might
we get the Bulldogs and the Griffins like 8 times a year.
Yeah, exactly.
We saw Milwaukee 3 times in a week this season. It was brutal.
Really?
Oh, it was bad.
We'll get teams coming in doing 2 or 3 games on a weekend, but that's just to obviously save money.
Do you guys go to a ton of AHL games? I feel like those are a lot of fun to go to if you can.
No.
Like,
I've never been to one.
You get to see some names every once in a while. Like, Jordan Tutu played in Grand Rapids, so I got to see him a couple times. I didn't know Toronto had Michael Nylander's son, I think it was.
Yeah, we drafted him last year, yeah.
I saw that name, and I hadn't seen that name since Nylander was a Blackhawk. No way.
Yeah. I don't mind going to an AHL game. It's, as long as it's decently priced. That was one of the problems when the Marlies first got to Toronto. The Leafs own them, and they have no clue how to price a regular outing for everyday people. So the prices were a little insane, but it's gotten back down to earth. This is one of my favorite questions, because I always talk about if I would do this or not. If you had the chance to go to the Hall of Fame knowing that you would get kicked out if you lifted the Stanley Cup off its display and held it over your head. Would you be willing to risk a lifetime ban from the Hall of Fame to do that? Jack?
A little question. Do I get to kiss it?
Oh, yeah. Once you have it in your hands, you have, let's say, 7 seconds to do whatever you need to do before you get tackled.
Oh, I'd definitely do it, yeah.
And risk the lifetime ban?
Yeah, I'm a ballsy person.
That'd be a good ass beating, too.
I would have to think so. They might handle you softly until the cup is back in its place.
Yeah,
but
then they'll take your shirt, pop it over your head.
Yeah, you get taken to the back room after that. I would think.
Yeah, they got all the glass things up, so they're gonna take you off to the side.
they're gonna lock you in the vault with the original cup and take care of business. Brendan, would you risk a lifetime ban from the Hall of Fame to raise the Stanley Cup?
If it was at this point in time, I would say no, because I've been there once, and it was when I was a young kid.
Okay.
But if I ever wanted to do it, I would do it when I'm a lot older and probably wouldn't get the chance to visit again.
No, it's your last visit, and so
He's smart about it. That's strategy there.
Plans a couple visits to get it all in, and then
he plans it little by little. He's got the blueprints.
Sean?
I couldn't do it. I go there at least twice a year.
Mm-hmm.
It pretty much ruined my summer if I couldn't go there. As much as I'd love to grab the cup and run around that room with it, it would be such a drag to go, oh yeah, you know what, let's go to the Hall of Fame again. Oh wait.
And then you got to tell your buddies a story why you can't go.
Yeah.
Good story, though.
It would be. You'd have to think you'd get in the paper and on the news and all that kind of stuff. Dylan, would you risk the lifetime ban?
I feel like if you're a fan of a team who's going to win it a couple times, why not? I've seen it in Rockford before, so if I can't go to Toronto and see it, I'll just wait for it to come back. But I joke about it, but I don't think I could actually do it. I've touched it, which I think is too far as it goes, as it is. Like, you're not supposed to touch it, but I'm never gonna play pro hockey. I think I'm okay.
Yeah, I got no problem with fans touching it. One thing about the Stanley Cup at the Hall of Fame is most of the time the actual Stanley Cup is not there. They have
yeah, I was just gonna ask about that because I've heard the rumors and I've never actually gone through trying to figure out what that. So there is a fake cup that they put up there.
Yeah, they don't call it a fake cup. They acknowledge that it's a showpiece.
Yeah.
And the way you tell the difference between the two is the real cup has spelling mistakes, and the biggest one is you go to the first time the Oilers won the cup, and Peter Pocklington, the owner of the Oilers, put his dad's name on it, and then the NHL said you can't do that, and so they put X's through it, and that's the real cup. And
I'll have to look for that next time when I see it in a few months.
And so if you see a cup and the first time the Oilers won it, if there's no X's over a top of name, then it's just the showpiece cup. And they don't tell anybody. They
unless you're really going to look for those things in there.
Yeah, I remember I was at the Hall of Fame one time, and there's tourists there looking at the cup, and they have a guy there who takes pictures and then charges like $40 to get the picture printed. But they were asking him all sorts of questions about the cup, and he didn't know. And I actually had to jump in and answer these questions about, hey, when's the last time the Leafs won the cup? And then you got to go up 3 rings to find them and all this kind of stuff. But yeah, I became an unpaid ambassador at the Hall of Fame that day.
If I'm going to try and lift any trophy in that trophy room, I've been there once, so I know my way around a little bit. I'm gonna forego the cup because that's too heavy to make a quick getaway with. I'm gonna go grab the Vezina. I want that one.
The Vezina.
That's the one I want. Yeah, I'm taking that.
It seems like there would be a lot of pieces that would fall off as you're trying to run out.
Yeah, I'd be careful.
Quick, Jim Carrey's name fell off. Oh no.
Yeah, not a big deal.
What a loss in the hockey community.
I remember, this is a dumb thing, but the Leafs used to give out the Molson Cup for their 3 stars when 3 stars actually mattered. And that's sitting at the Air Canada Centre, I think, in the bar. And I would love to just grab that and walk out. And I don't think anybody would care because it's the Molson Cup, and it never really mattered.
I feel like if you grab the Conn Smythe, you could really hurt somebody with it. That leaf on the back looks really pokey.
That's sharp, yeah. does anybody care about the Conn Smythe really when they order it? I mean, when your career's done, you go, hey, I want a Conn Smythe. That's pretty impressive. But whenever someone wins it, they grab it and they pretty much skate right to the bench and put it down and wait for the cup.
Yeah, they know what's coming. My favorite picture, of the Conn Smythe, probably my favorite hockey picture ever, is J.S. Jaguar when they lost the cup, and he's got to sit there and hold the Conn Smythe with the saddest look on his face.
And he just wants to get dressed and get on the bus.
He just wants to go. And
then again, that's also bragging rights to the rest of the team for the plane ride home.
That's
okay,
true.
guys. At least
I tried.
have a trophy.
Where's your guys' trophy? Because I got the Conn Smythe over here in the seat beside me.
If you haven't seen that picture in a while, look it up. Saddest beard I've ever seen.
His tears are getting caught in all the hairs.
I think that's the only Conn Smythe that really mattered.
That's true.
Like, yeah, it's not that it doesn't matter, because it's always great, when some guy goes to the Hall of Fame. It's like 6-time Conn Smythe Trophy winner.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, great, that means he did this and this and this. But at the same, when it happens, you're like, great, bring up the cup.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. And there's always some guy waiting at the bench to receive the trophy from the Conn Smythe from whoever won it, because you know that it's
One
just,
year, some guy probably dropped it.
Yeah. They have to return it to the Hall of Fame, and they return 2 packages, one with the trophy, one with the leaf in the stadium broken off the top. Currently, during the playoffs, teams are only allowed to wear 2 jerseys, and I personally like it that way. What are your guys' thoughts on if they were allowed to wear their alternate and rotate between the 3? Jack?
I like when teams change it up. I'd say definitely let them wear their alternate.
Okay. All right. Brendan?
I think I'd like it this way, and just have a bit of unity during the playoffs. Does that make any sense?
Oh, yeah.
Kinda?
Absolutely.
Just have more unity between the, like, not have it switch up maybe for a lot of fans might watch the playoffs and I wouldn't say fans, but just other people might watch the playoffs and nothing else. And if they just decide to watch the playoffs, they might not know what team is what if teams are changing jerseys,
And I believe that's the idea behind the rule, too. But I like it. It adds a little... I don't know. It adds a little identity, I guess you could say. Like, you know that this team's wearing whatever, the black jersey, and if they win the cup, they're winning either the black jersey or the white jersey, and it gives the jerseys a little credibility if the team chooses to wear them during the playoffs. Sean, what are your thoughts?
First off, Tampa is not allowed to do it for reasons that their jersey's too ugly. I'm gonna be straightforward with that. Tampa can't, but everybody else can. At the same time, it's teams like Minnesota and Washington and San Jose, when they make it, they do special things where they wear these specific jerseys. Say this jersey's for the playoffs. We wear this to the whole playoffs, however long we're in it. It sort of adds some more meaning to that jersey as opposed to an alternate in the playoffs.
Yeah, the Leafs do that too whenever they try to make the playoffs.
Ooh.
And Minnesota uses their alternate, the green
jersey, yeah,
as almost like a second home. They don't acknowledge it as an alternate. They consider it as 2 home jerseys and then their white jersey. Dylan, your thoughts on if teams were allowed to wear 3 jerseys during the playoffs?
I like it the way it is, but I wouldn't be opposed to, say, like the first round or maybe the first 2 rounds when there's a game every day and you're going to see hockey every day. Like maybe on Saturdays or on Sundays, every team that has one can wear their alternate jersey, permitting whether or not they're not clashing with the other team.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't like it when some teams do it. Like San Jose, I know has done it. They always wear black. They wear their black alternates, which is whatever. I don't watch them too often, so it doesn't bother me. But I didn't care for Washington doing it this year.
Oh, really? I love that.
Oh, yeah.
I can see why people did, because it's not a bad-looking jersey, but there was such a contrast between their home and away looks.
It made their at home look bad.
Yeah, that's true.
It did, and I like, for some reason, their primary jerseys. So I liked it when they were at home and they looked like the Washington Capitals as they are now, like modern and sleek, and then they go on the road and they look like 20 years ago, 30 years ago.
The 1970s Capitals.
Yeah,
Could never win 10 games.
I don't mind, like, the Minnesota does it. Like you said, they don't even consider that an alternate. That's part of their current brand, and it fits very well, and I don't mind. I don't even think about it.
Yeah, that's true.
The Washington one kind of bugged me.
Okay.
Tampa would bug me.
Oh. Can you imagine if Tampa is winning the Stanley Cup wearing that black and white Bolts jersey? Just
I'm glad that, like, the turd burger grew on me, but can you imagine if somewhere down the road you get Jack Eichel lifting that thing in the blue and yellow turd burger?
Oh my god,
that'd be beautiful.
There'd be
so bad.
There would be
good.
Some sort of poetry to that. I'll tell you what.
It would just and those pictures would be
Everywhere.
etched in history, and it would just be the worst.
Too bad. Wonka Nowak, whatever his name is, isn't here to give it. I would love to hear how he feels about that.
Oh yeah, well everybody in Buffalo's on cloud nine because they actually have something to celebrate and something to distract them from the fact that they live in Buffalo.
Yeah, true that.
Anyways, we're gonna play a Would You Rather, and would you rather have your team win 3 straight cups, followed by missing the playoffs for 15 years, or over a 40-year span, have a 2-6 record in Stanley Cup Final Series, such as the Philadelphia Flyers? Jack, what would you like? What would you prefer the Hawks to have?
I'd say 3 straight wins. I don't know. I've enjoyed the parades the last couple of years. I'd kind of want 3 more. I would not want to go another 40 years without a cup win.
But after they won the 3, would you be able to withstand 15 years of not even making it in the playoffs?
Yeah, I can find another team to jump on the bandwagon with.
Brendan, what do you think? 3 and then miss 15, or a decent record in the finals over 40 years?
I guess in a way you have to depends on when the Stanley Cup wins are over the 40 years.
Well, let's take a look at the Flyers. They had 3 appearances in the 70s, 2 in the 80s, 2 I think in the 90s, and then another one in 2010. Would you take that over 40 years, or would you take 3 straight?
Considering that I was alive for, I'm pretty sure, one of them, I would take the 3 straight. But also, you have to think about it, like, you'd rather win the cup than just get to the final and lose.
I don't know. See, now you're talking to a Leaf fan, and at this point, I'd rather
That's the conference final.
We've already done that. We got to move on, maybe get to a Stanley Cup final now. Sean, what would you like your team to do?
Okay, so I don't know what a Stanley Cup final is, or a conference final, or a conference semifinal.
They're pretty cool.
Or a playoff win at this point.
Those are really cool, too.
You know, pity party aside, I read the question, I was thinking, there's no way I can say team misses the playoffs for 15 years. But to go through 8 Stanley Cup finals, and to only win 2, and then being your first 2, and you're sitting there thinking, you should have at least won one of those. So I got to go with the win 3 straight, have a dynasty.
And then miss for 15 straight years.
And then miss for 15 straight years because, you might have something come up then. You might get a Dino Ciccarelli or a Mark Howe come through the system, someone interesting.
Yeah.
But who's never, going to get a real playoff shot. But I could not see having such quality players and then never doing well.
See, I know obviously the goal is to win the Stanley Cup, but over a 40-year span, making 8 finals, I know they only won 2 and they won their first 2. We're talking about the Flyers here in case anybody's lost track. But looking at that as a whole, I don't know, I think I would take the 8 Stanley Cup Finals appearances in 40 years. And maybe that's just because I'm a Leafs fan and I haven't sniffed a Stanley Cup anything here in my lifetime, so who knows?
It's okay, you had a chance.
Yeah.
Multiple.
multiple chances.
It's funny, I was just on Twitter, and the first thing that comes up is 16 years ago, Eric Rasmussen sends the Buffalo Sabres to the Stanley Cup Final. I'm like, oh, Brian saw that.
Oh, boy.
Oh, jeez. I can't even... I'm sitting here, and I don't even know what it feels like anymore to get behind a team in a way where you shut down your life because they're playing a playoff game. I know I used to do it, but I have no clue what it feels like anymore.
I can remember when the Leafs played the Flyers in that series.
99.
No, 04.
Oh,
in the semifinals.
Yeah.
And getting behind them because they pulled out against New Jersey. They did really well. And then they hit the Flyers and they just lost. And I was like, who loses to Robert Ashe?
Robert Ashe.
And I was done with it. At that point, I was like, Leafs, come on.
Dylan, what would you go with, 3 straight cups or the 8 appearances in 40 years?
Well, I look at it. I tend not. I don't want to look at this one through a hockey scope because I might actually get that 3 in a row. Maybe we'll see. But I'm a Cubs fan, so that's kind of like being a Maple Leafs fan.
Absolutely, yep.
Except we've got a pretty good outlook on life right now. But I've only ever seen one team lose a championship, and that was the Bears. But I don't follow football too closely, so it didn't hit me as hard. But I've seen the Blackhawks lose in the conference finals. I've seen the Cubs lose 5 outs away from a World Series. I can't handle losing a series like that in the playoffs. I don't think I could stand to watch a team lose the Stanley Cup Finals. I'd have to go with the 3 in a row, and then the 15 years no playoffs. That just frees up the beginning of my summer a little bit. As fun as it is to watch your team, like it can get messy trying to plan things around a hockey game every other night.
Oh, it's really easy when your team misses the playoffs. It's just as soon as May hits, you're like, hey, what's to watch on TV?
Exactly.
No.
I just went and saw, like Game 7s, you can never plan for that. So I had plans made for Saturday night weeks ago, not imagining that there'd be a Game 7 that night. So I had to try and plan a 10:30 John Mulaney show with a 7 o'clock Game 7 that, for all I know, is going to go into 6 overtimes, and I'm going to miss everything. And it'd be fun to have maybe a couple years off with no important playoff hockey. Maybe not 15, but that's the question. So yeah, that one.
Okay. If this was you had your show on Saturday there, Dylan. If this was the Stanley Cup Final, let's say Game 7, I don't know how much you paid for the tickets. Let's say they're $60 a piece. Do you blow off the show if Game 7 of the Cup Final goes in overtime?
Well, we had this planned out. We went to the show was in Chicago, at the Chicago Theater, and we found the Billy Goat Tavern like 2 blocks away. So we watched the game in there, and it was only a 5-minute walk to the theater. So if it came down to it, we would just walk in late, and if we missed it, we missed it. We knew what we were dealing with.
Okay. All right. That's pretty much all we got for today. It was awesome talking about Stanley Cup Final. Game 1 Wednesday, 8 o'clock, CBC, NBC, online illegal streams, however you watch it. It's on. Brendan, Jack, Sean, Dylan, want to thank you guys for joining me here today.
No problem. Hey, guys, don't forget, Wednesday, most important thing, I post that day. Don't forget to read the post.
Read the post, because Dylan will be drinking Blackhawks Kool-Aid. It's going to be all black and red.
Oh, man, not even that. Just imagine, like, you guys haven't seen him yet. The listeners haven't. Could be some sick concepts, bros. Check it out, I think.
All right, guys. Thanks for joining me, and talk to everybody on the next HJC podcast.